All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you, just like me. Big shout out to Jesus Christ this weekend, Easter, Resurrection Sunday, however you describe it. Humanity really has no other hope. Zero, zero. Your politicians, these people who tell me that they are putting their faith and trust in a politician and they treat him like the Messiah. And I'm like, no, nope. Don't see any Christ like qualities there either. Just don't. Sorry. Anyway, that's my take on it. And put your faith and hope and trust in the resurrection, because the way things are going, the darkness is kind of closing in. I mean, some of the weirdness going on last week, with the Budweiser thing and so many other issues that are out there that are linked to that. It just, I don't know. I'm getting older, and I just don't have a whole lot of patience for this culture war, and it's getting very divisive. So, in any event, people, we need peace, and Jesus is the Prince of Peace, but he also brought a sword. So, there's some uncomfortable tension there between Jesus bringing the sword and the Prince of Peace. Because maybe the only way we find peace is with a sword. I don't know. In any event, interesting news about David Crosby. Kind of a bombshell, actually. Well, the media, of course, wouldn't see this as a bombshell. Only a fool like me would see it as a bombshell. A conspiracy theorist. A guy who should just stay in his lane. Well, I'm talking about music. David Crosby, by the way, had been releasing some really good music toward the end of his life. So go check out what Cros has been doing. Some people were calling David Crosby Steely Dave, because some of the stuff really had a Steely Dan vibe, and I really enjoyed it. But Graham Nash has dropped a bombshell, if you ask me. He says here that Rock and Roll Hall of Famer David Crosby had passed away after contracting the thing. Now, a couple of things here. Why do I consider this a bombshell? Well, first of all, if Dave hadn't made it to CVS, that was because he was a stubborn old mule, and his personality was very unpredictable. If you tell David Crosby to do something, he's going to say nope. And by the way, if his doctor told him to do it or to not do it, I'm thinking that Dave would probably do the opposite of what his doctor told him to do, but I don't know. But Dave did live in this bubble, this neoliberal wall of information insanity and gaslighting and all that stuff. And so I'm thinking he probably went and did the thing. And so if he did do the thing, then certainly the other thing wasn't stopped by what he had done. It didn't unless, of course, they just said he died he died with. Okay, this was this is a big complaint during when they were running those numbers up the first year, and they said somebody died with it, not from it. There is a difference, dying with it and dying from it. It's like I could have skin cancer but have a heart attack, and thus the heart attack is what does it. The skin cancer is something else that you have, but you didn't die from the cancer. Maybe you would have eventually. The point being is that words have been manipulated in a way which, if you're not paying attention, it just goes right over your head. Okay, he died. So this headline looks like he died from the thing. He went to sleep and didn't wake up, and it had to be that. All right. A lot of these cases, though, typically are people going to the hospital, people going to the ICU, people being intubated, and then they give you this other concoction. I have this euphemism for it. It's called Your Death is Near. Okay, that's not really a good name for a pharmaceutical product, but it might as well be if they're going to start giving you this stuff. And some people think it expedites things and makes things worse. Others, including the crazy doctor who finally quit, he thought it was, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Anyway, Graham Nash says Crosby was rehearsing for a show to do in Los Angeles with a full band. Okay, well, whoa, wait. Why are you out rehearsing? I mean, Stevie Nicks is canceling concerts. I mean, he's out there rehearsing with a band? Something's not right here. So with all the protocols and the insurance and the riders and everything's got to be written into the contract, and maybe, this doesn't include rehearsals. Maybe the rehearsals, because they're just rehearsing. They're not actually gigging at that point. But you would think that if somebody in the band contracts the thing, then you shut everything down and then contact trace the entire world and stay 100 feet apart and don't get any sunlight. Yeah, don't get sunlight. That's bad. All right, don't go outside and get fresh air, and try to be hermetically sealed. See if you can buy a hazmat suit and put it on, because that's what will protect you. Anyway, Nash shared this information with the Kyle Meredith podcast. After 3 days of rehearsals, he felt a little sick. Okay, he felt a little sick, and he'd already had the thing. Okay, this is kind of interesting information here. So David had already gotten the thing, and then he had it again. So it appears that Dave has had or did have the thing 3 times. 3 times. Now, there are a bunch of crazy wackadoodle conspiracy theorists out there that said if you go to Walgreens multiple times, that's going to lower your ability to deal with the thing if you get it. And then you'll keep getting it. And I'm not sure if this is the scenario with David Crosby here, but it's interesting that the wackadoodles might have a point. Or they're just crazy, and you just need to look the other way. The other weird thing would be is if Crosby had gone to Walgreens multiple times, why is he getting this over and over again? And if this did do him in, well, that's not saying a lot for this it's absolutely incredible, amazing concoction. It's Operation Warp Speed. It's the greatest operation in the history of operations that I know, that I can tell you. No, apparently it wasn't. He adds, Crosby went home and decided that he would take a nap, and he never woke up. Okay? He took a nap and he never woke up. But he died in his bed, and that is fantastic. This is according to Graham Nash. It's fantastic. At least he didn't get hit by a bus, right? Good. Amen to that. He was in his bed. Okay. Silver lining time, right? Ooh. So Nash says many people didn't expect Crosby to live as long as he did. True that. Noting he expected him to go 20 years ago. So his best friend, Graham Nash, thought that David Crosby was going to kick the bucket 20 years ago. Boy, that's reassuring, right? He's like, hey, Dave, how you doing this? How you still above ground, Dave? What's your secret? David's like, duct tape, man. I'm using duct tape. I mean, the fact that he made it to 81 was astonishing, Nash offers, although he says it was still a shock. Yeah, you know why it might have still been a shock? Because maybe Graham Nash knows the truth. Maybe Crosby did do what he was supposed to do, and it worked in reverse. It went the other way. Anyway, Nash says that he and Crosby had been mending fences before Crosby's death. That's interesting because there was no news of the fence mending until after Dave had died. So I'm not saying it's not true, but I don't know. I mean, these guys were fighting like cats and dogs. And I kind of like what David Crosby had to say about Neil Young's wife, but everybody else in the band, even Stephen Stills, came around and said, yeah, he and David were, getting along again prior to his death. It's much like Sammy Hagar and Eddie Van Halen. They were talking prior to Eddie's death, but yet in that video where he's defending Michael Anthony, which is still up on YouTube, holy crap, Batman. And I'm thinking those Graham Nash videos are up there still talking about how he was never going to hang out with Dave again. So anyway, just food for thought. Nash goes on to say he had a good life. I mean, what incredible music he made. He was a fantastic storyteller. I loved him dearly. In looking back at what separated us, it was just foolish stuff, really. But yet you weren't going to make amends with him. The music is the most important part of our relationship. All right, fair enough, good ending. But what's very interesting is this part about he got the thing. So if you read the first paragraph, what's your conclusion? David Crosby died from the thing. That's horrible. That's terrible. I'm staying inside. Now, if that's true, which it doesn't say, it just says he had the thing. Again, died from, died with. Those are two different animals. People don't have the brain capacity to think that through. And so what about the fact that Dave went to CVS multiple times? Or did he? Interesting. And if he didn't, why wasn't a lecture given somewhere about how, again, he should have followed the protocols? He was stubborn. He decided to do it his way. Interesting that nobody's talking about that. Of course, when Meatloaf died, everybody was like, oh, Meatloaf. See, he was anti-thing. This is why he's dead. He was anti-thing. Yeah, I don't know. Meatloaf had a lot of problems too. Meatloaf didn't have a better health outlook than David Crosby. In fact, in some ways, he may have had a worse health outlook. He had been having issues for a number of years, non-related to any of this stuff. I mean, Meatloaf, he smoked, he drank, he ate too much, he lived the rock and roll lifestyle, and he didn't change too many of his habits. He did lose a few pounds for a number of years, and he looked better, but people were still bashing him. They were like, see, if you had just done what the crazy little doctor was suggesting, then you would have, you would still be here. And a bunch of people would still be yelling at him because they didn't like what he had to say. Meatloaf was a very outspoken person, much like David Crosby, with very different political views, both very stubborn and both musically very important. In fact, Meatloaf probably should be a candidate for the Hall of Fame posthumously because he did influence youth culture quite a bit in the late 70s. I mean, that seems to be one of the criteria of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But who knows? It's a moving target, and it's hard to hit. David Crosby is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like 3 times? Something like that. And he should be. He was great. But he's not here anymore. And yeah, the 81 thing, he was lucky to get to 81, and I think that is one of the truer things said here by Graham Nash, regardless of what did it, regardless. But it is interesting how the media frames things in a whole new way because, we've moved on. Even the WHO has said some interesting things lately, and you can check that out for yourself. I'm not going to reveal it here, but I don't know, folks. The only thing I could say is we've all got some things to think about when it comes to our health and as we get older and end of life issues. And because it's Easter weekend, Resurrection Sunday, I'm thinking you need to think about that kind of stuff, about your eternal destiny. And I'm not an evangelist, but it is kind of a big deal this weekend. In light of all the darkness in the world right now, the only hope we have, not a politician, not a billionaire, not a mogul, not a media outlet, what your hope really is Jesus Christ and his resurrection. And tomorrow he is risen, and he's risen indeed. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, people. Subscribers, patrons, YouTube members. I have nice conversations over on Patreon. It's getting hard to keep up with them again, which is a good problem to have. But if I don't get to your comment immediately, don't get mad. It is the weekend, and I do tend to, hang out with the family, and I'll be doing so tomorrow. So enjoy the time you have with your family, and God bless everyone.